in life, sometimes we get caught up in the activities of the world and we tend to neglect our most honored gift. Talking about the gift of life, all of the children throughout the world. And you know, Almighty God has charged us to be responsible for all of the children. We'd like to appeal to everyone. Let us all come together. Take a stand. Save ourselves, save the children, and save the world. Calling out to everyone. Don't you know the time has come? Save the children.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us this morning for Universal Dimension Leadership. Alhamdulillah, we just broadcast yesterday's recording of Jumu'ah from Masjid al-Warthin here in Oakland, California. The subject was the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, alhamdulillah, which we are in. Very, very special time, sacred time. Another opportunity for, I can't call it a fire sale, because that analogy doesn't work well. But you know that means that you can get some really valuable things for a really low price. So you got to figure out another way of saying can't use fire sale, because that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. But alhamdulillah, as always, we want to hear from you. Come on through. Push one on your phone. Come on with comments, input, etc. About what you heard, about what you're feeling in this great and wonderful time. And a big part of what we want to emphasize, everything for everyone that's good is always on time, right? But you know, Ramadan is easy to get ready for Eid al-Fitr, because of the fact that, you've been fasting for 29 or 30 days, or whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, you're ready for it because you have literally actually formally been doing something every day to set you up for the end. But sometimes Eid al-Adha kind of, creeps up on us because there's not a lot of formal activity leading up to it. But it's not because the religion does not give us a way to be in touch with that time, even though we're not on Hajj. And it is understanding and having appreciation for those first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said, the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, no good deeds are better than what is done in these first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And then some of the companions said, not even jihad in the way of Allah. And the Prophet said, not even jihad in the way of Allah, except for a man who goes out with his life and wealth at risk, and he returns with nothing. So it's so much to that, because the people in the audience that the Prophet was saying this to were people who had been at the Battle of Badr, been at the Battle of Uhud, been at the Battle of the Trench. These are people who had fought and who had put their life on the line for jihad, etc., and lost family members and lost limbs and etc. And they asked, you mean this is bigger than jihad? It's more reward? It's greater than jihad? He said, yeah. And then the prophet added to it. He said, not only is it bigger than jihad in terms of this, the jihad does not equal the rewards of good deeds of the 10 days. He says that if he took everything out there with him and came back with nothing, then that would not even equal it. So it's like that kind of settles the question. And so to do and to take advantage of an opportunity such as this, because you and I haven't been, maybe we've been in our own Badr, in our own Uhud, in our own Battle of the Trench, and maybe we still are in so many ways. But the point is that these are the days to take advantage of that and really take advantage of what's available. This is there's so many images going through my mind with regard to that, but we're gonna keep going. Assalamu alaikum. Let me see if I got it right. Is this Sister Hamida?
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. How you doing?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing very good right now. I had a couple of questions about the Kupa.
Okay.
That I would like to ask and clarify. Mm-hmm. When you spoke about sin and you spoke about let me get it right. Some sins may not be the same for others.
Sin. Yeah, a sin for one person may not be a sin for another person. Yeah.
Yeah, will you clarify that for me? Because I do know that basically, fornication and all of that stuff.
We're not talking about that. So good. It's right that you asked the question, and that was that was on my mind, being conscious when I was saying what I was saying, but in the khutbah I didn't stop to do all the detail. But no, I'm glad you're asking this question. We had this opportunity. So you have the idea of major sin, minor sins. And this is something that you can look up. You can just Google and just say, what are the minor sins of Islam? What are the major sins in Islam? And we use the term sin just simply because we're speaking English, but I sought to clarify inside of the khutbah that sin is an English word translated from a Greek word, and the Greek word is a term that means to miss the mark. It's an archery term, to miss the mark. So we all miss the mark in some ways. All right. But there are certain things, excuse me, there are certain acts that are sins for anyone who does it, right? Stealing, lying, cheating, there certain things are that, and there's some very minor qualifications if you get deeper into certain other things. But fornication, adultery, murder, all of those things are quote unquote sins for everybody, right? So my statements were inside of what I gave as the definition from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is when the Prophet was asked what is sin, he said, whatever you don't want people to find out, right? That's one of the definitions of sin. So there may be some things that I do that in that context, so people can find out or not find out. But if somebody else did the same thing, for them, they might not want someone to find out about it. I'm not going to try to give an example. It's that there's certain people may be bothered by certain things, but it may not bother me. And that's where the Prophet also said, when a thing troubles the peace of your heart, give it up. Said, what is sin? When a thing troubles the peace of your heart, give it up. I may do something and it doesn't trouble the peace of my heart, but that same thing done by somebody else may trouble the peace of their heart. So then what that means is for that person, the same act was a sin by that definition. But for me, and flip it around for the other person may do something that doesn't trouble their heart, but it would trouble my heart. So then that means for them, it's not a sin by that definition, but for me, it is a sin by that definition. So, and let me just use this. Here's just an example, right? Something to think about, right? The Prophet was given a gift of a beautiful brocade shirt, or a beautiful brocade shirt jacket. It was really, really nice, right? And so the person gave it to him as a gift, and then the Prophet put it on, right? He put it on because he saw how beautiful it was, and then he took it off real quick and just and gave it to another person, and then it's like shunning it, right? And he told the person to go and give it to Omar, right? Go and give it to Omar. And so the person took it, gave it to Omar, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came on an occasion and he saw Omar wearing what he had sent to him, right? And then the Prophet said, Omar, what are you doing wearing that? What are you doing wearing that? And Omar said, you sent it to me. No, I didn't send it. He said, when I put it on, the angel Jibril told me that that's not for you. You cannot wear that kind of thing, right? And then Omar, once the Prophet told him that's what happened with him when he put the jacket on, I said, well, why you send it to me? It's like, why would you send it to me? It's bad for you. It's unacceptable for you. Why would you send it to me? The Prophet said, I didn't send it to you for you to wear. I sent it to you for you to take it to the marketplace, and perhaps you could benefit through the sale by selling it, right? So there's a lot of information there. But the point is that here's something that the Prophet, it was an otherwise quote unquote good thing because the person thought it was a good gift for the Prophet, and the Prophet thought in that moment it's a good thing for him. But then in the scheme of God for Prophet Muhammad, no, that's not for you. And then we sent it to Omar, and the Prophet was feeling the same way with regard to Omar, but Omar responded to it like the Prophet responded to it. And then so the Prophet told him, no, that's not for you. Take it to the market. Okay, so now he takes it to the marketplace. Who is he going to sell it to? Who's he going to sell it to? The marketplace fundamentally is a Muslim marketplace. So apparently there is something that's a Muslim could wear, but it has to move down in certain grades. It's beyond the Prophet. And the Prophet said that if it were not that Allah would send but one prophet, and it said, and every time there's a person in the community of the prophet who would be a prophet if that prophet was not the prophet. And he said, in my time it was Omar. So seeing Omar in that light, he put the same rules on Omar in his reading. Omar didn't get it in that particular case, but the point is that no, the prophet say, for me that's a sin, for you that's a sin, but it's not necessarily a sin for other Muslims. I'll just use that as an example. So no, it doesn't mean that the sins, and you can go into the Quran. The Quran talks about the things that Allah has forbidden, right? The things that Allah has forbidden. He says he's forbidden this, that, and several things. So all those things are sins for the prophet, right? For all those things are sins for anybody, right? But there are other things outside of that which are relative to the individual's growth, conscience, etc. I hope that helps.
Yes. So can I clarify? So, like, say for instance, how it's allowable for the prophet to take several wives, and Allah gave that to him for a special reason, but then it's not okay for the other Muslims.
Not for more, not more than four. Not more than four. So the prophet was allowed more than four, like you said, for many reasons. It was more than four, but everybody else is restricted to four. And while I say that, especially because you're relatively new Muslim, it's like the norm in the Muslim world is monogamy, not polygyny. But the point is that in the ruling of al-Islam, yes, four wives is halal and it's the max, except for the prophet. So for someone to take more than 5 in that case, that would also be a sin.
Okay, I understand, and I had misunderstood yesterday the sentence, how you said no object of worship. He is the one, and
no partners.
When you said the sentence, it kind of ran together, but I clarified it. I listened a little closer today, and I understood what you were saying when you said you shortened it just so you can remember those words, so you can bring out the whole hadith.
Right.
And
no, go ahead.
I just want to thank you.
Alhamdulillah, I hope you got it. In fact, when I listened yesterday, I realized that I actually switched up a word. I said, I reject one partner. That's what I said in the khutbah. I reject one partner in his kingdom of praise and power. I reject one partner in his kingdom of praise and power. It should have been, I object one partner in his kingdom of praise and power, because I wanted to get in there. There's no object of worship. He's one with no partners. His is the kingdom. His is the praise, and he has power over all things. So my sentence should have been, I object one partner in his kingdom of praise and power. So it's one partner, kingdom, praise, power. So if you can, or rather, object one partner, kingdom, praise, power. If you can remember those, then the whole sentence can come back to you, inshallah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And thank you. May Allah continue to guide you to the best, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Ameen. Wa alaikum assalam.
All right, where are the rest of you? No questions, no comments, no input, no feedback. Y'all done got all shy. Push one on your phone. Come on through. Alhamdulillah. All right. Brother Mark, assalamu alaikum. Excuse me.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
to you, Imam Fahim Shoaib, and your very astute radio listening audience. Mark Shahi from STL here in the gateway city of St. Louis, Show Me State, Missouri. Was alhamdulillah, the praise and thanks belongs to Allah. I was blessed. I said blessed to be able to hear your khutbah. Very substantive information.
Alhamdulillah.
Always that you give, and and just in line with this being the last month of the Hijrah calendar, Dhul Hijjah, and as we speak, we have Muslims from our association, Muslims from the continental USA, and from around the world that are in the process of the last pillar, which is Hajj, making Hajj. You said so many different things there. It was very, very enlightening. I saw a similarity there with this fifth pillar. Is oftentimes relating to Siyam, fasting in the month of Ramadan, where you have to have the discipline, the discipline. And matter of fact, in the last 10 days, it is said that the emancipation or liberation, as Imam Muhammad said, the fire of our own passion. He said he won't have to be worried so much about the hellfire afterwards if we would take care of the fire of our own passion, So I was relating that also to the Hajj. As you were giving your khutbah, I was looking at how that's interrelated. It's actually a prerequisite for us to be able to make the Hajj and successfully, with the acceptance of Allah, in terms of adhering to all the parameters that is set in terms of the Hajjis, in terms of having a successful Hajj. I wanted to ask you a question in regards, and it may be off topic. You tell me if it is, and I would understand. But we have the two major holidays, and I'm quite sure you see it in your community as well as I see it here, and just Muslims just in general. Eid al-Adha being the greater of the two Eids, or brighter of the two Eids, as oftentimes is said. And I'm thinking because there are always going to be more Muslims that are going to be observing the fast in the month of Ramadan, and at the conclusion of that, it's seemingly celebrated, acknowledged in a greater way than this Eid al-Adha. Sometimes people have to be reminded. We actually have a calendar, and there are Muslims that are making Hajj, and even though we're not making Hajj, it may not be acknowledged as much as, and I think this is where the education has to come into play to become conscious, aware of that. And your khutbah really helped bring even more of a consciousness. As far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself in that regard. But Brother Imam, would you give us something in terms of how it is that we should see Eid al-Adha? And I know you put an emphasis in terms of our children, in terms of getting them in a frame of mind to look forward to that, but also in the process of looking forward to that in terms of the spirit of it, the gifts that they receive, but the educational part of it. I know I'm saying a lot there, but if you could give us something to differentiate or to show the similarity, but why Eid al-Adha would be the brighter of the two Eids. Thank you. And I appreciate I appreciate the insight that you give to us in that regard, to keep us conscious of all of our pillars, and most certainly I see the Hajj as encompassing all the other four
Yes.
pillars that preceded it. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. You are correct. Alhamdulillah. So I'm going to take a considerable amount of time to take advantage of your question after I get the feedback from the others that are lined up. And then, but then,
okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine, because that's a part of actually what I look for when I come on Saturday. I say, okay, let me see if there's something that to get my teeth into, if I can use that vernacular, and then that kind of take us to the end. And I think what you just said may do just that, inshallah. So inshallah, I'll respond to it, and may Allah give us the best benefit from it, inshallah. Thank you. Fine. All right, we're gonna hear from my brother Imam Joel. He skipped class last week, but I ain't gonna tell nobody about it. It's good. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Can you hear me now?
Come on, I can't hear you well. Come on.
Hold on, I'm on the call. Okay, how about now?
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I skipped class and I ended up hurting my hip that very day, and I'm just now being able to walk straight again. So,
well, we thank Allah. It's just a purification, brother. That's all it is. Just a purification.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. Also, I'm like again, man, everybody class. I just wanted to see if I can get you to touch a little further on. You were basically making part of the points that you're making in the wonderful khutbah was the self-reflection, dealing with our inside, what we got going on ourselves, and how we should be looking for forgiveness, and how we should be approaching the 10 days. And I thought about the connection that you could expand a little bit on with the nefs and where we are in that certain, in that. That's where I was. So it goes back to something we're doing in class, but I think that I thought about that.
Yeah.
And I was expand a little bit on that for us as well, me personally, but everybody else in class on the call. So inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. May Allah continue to improve back to your Olympic status. You rehab like Klay Thompson, man. You'll be good.
Yes, sir. Inshallah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. All right, alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And we seek Allah's aid and assistance in all of this. In response to the last two comments or questions, I'll make this contribution this morning. So Imam Joel just talked about the relationship to the nefs, right? And Brother Mark is asking with regard to the significance of the brightness in the terminology of Adaha. It's really just wonderful. So with Allah's help and permission and guidance, I say this: that the Eid al-Fitr is about Adam, and the Eid al-Adha is about Abraham. Okay, Eid al-Fitr, Adam; Eid al-Adha, Abraham. Eid al-Fitr as Adam, because Adam is representative of our nature. Let's take advantage of Surah al-Fajr, Surah 89. It has in it that movement, and it's the one that ends in, and I should go ahead and read it if I'm going to talk about it. It is so now. Right now, I'm really focused on the 10. The 10. I'm just going to read the beginning. I'm not going to read the whole surah, but Surah 89 says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitan wal fajr wal layalin ashr والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر. Right? So much in that. Let's just take that last one, hijr, right? So with hijr, you can get hajar out of that, right? And hajar, we make this the sa'i from Safar to Marwa, is a reflection of hajar, the Abraham's wife, seeking sustenance, help, assistance for her son Ismail after the Prophet Ibrahim had left them there. And the black stone is called Hajratul Aswad. So I mean, you can work with hijr, you can work with hajar, and you can work with hijra. You know, for all of that is in, that's verse 5 of Surah 89. But I want to go to the bottom, since Imam Joel was asking with regard to the nafs, right? Because that the verse ends when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billah, this is from Surah 89, verse 27. A'udhu billah, it says, Ya ayyuhatun nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiya fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Sadaqallahu al-azim. So this portion of the verse, let's go back to the first 5. So we're talking about the beginning and the end. And mashallah, alhamdulillah, is very, very appropriate when we look at it. Let's go. Where it says, by the dawn, that is the breaking forth of the light of the sun after the night, right? By the dawn, and walayal al-ashr, and by the 10 nights, right? So everything else comes by way of, you know, reading, interpretation, etc. It says by the even and by the odd and by the night when it passes, and then yasr is in there, and it passes easy, right? The night when it passes. Then okay, so that's the 10. Okay, so starting with the 10, this is what most of the scholars interpret that 10 to be related to the divisions of 10, meaning that like Ramadan is broken into 10, 10, 10, right? The first 10 days, the second 10 days, the third 10 days, and ascription is given to each one. I believe the first is mercy, the second is forgiveness, and the third is salvation from the hellfire. So that 10 is the divisions of 10. So Allah is bringing our attention to the significance of 10. And then and the Imam, mashallah, tells us about 10 as being a sign of conscience, meaning really, really coming alive. And it's really a big deal. When you understand, and Allah knows best, and we pray our understanding is correct. When you understand the whole mission of life and humanity on earth, it is about becoming fully conscious. It's becoming fully conscious. And conscience, CONSCIENCE, is a part of that, a big part of that, because the goal is to have a fully evolved conscience in our consciousness. A fully evolved what is conscience? Conscience. Okay, now we have to talk about another reference with regard to the 10, right? Let's go first with Surah 10, Ayah 100. Surah 10, Ayah 100. Surah 10, Ayah 100 is the one that says, none can believe except by the will of Allah, except by the permission of Allah. And he will send uncleanness on those who fail to use their brains, right? So here you have 10. And the Imam says when a thing is multiplied by itself, a number, obviously, then that's the fullness of that number. That's the fullness of it. 3 times 3, 9 is the fullness of 3. 6 times 6, 36 is the fullness of 6. 5 times 5, 25 is the fullness of 5, right? And so he also relates with 5 and 5. 5 and 5 is 10. And well, I got to say it. This is what's there. 5 and 5. So when 5 relates to 5, then you get 10, right? So the fullness of 5 is 25. The relationship, when 5 relates to 5, then that's talking about the senses relating to the senses, and it's what we know to be, that is language that's used for it, is metacognition. That is, you have your 5 senses, and then you have your thinking about your 5 senses. What you sense something, and then you think about what you're sensing, and that's 5 relating to 5, and that's 10, and that's conscience. So let's be clear on conscience. Conscience is where the Quran, another 10 comes into this. 91, which when you add 9 and 1, that's 10. But particularly this section, or rather, and particularly this section of verses 7 through 10 in 91. Surah Shams, there's the light, there's the sun, there's that symbol of this rising up, and it's also tied to Fajr. Fajr is just the beginning of that rising up. The sun is a symbol of this, the ultimate, the motivation ultimately to come to full light everywhere, right? So that means the sun full, the sun at its height, distributing its light everywhere, eliminating shadows even. In fact, at Zuhr is just after that when a shadow begins, but before that, the sun is right at a peak where there is no shadows, right? So it's all light, all illuminated. So all this, the sun, Surah 91, Shams, Al-Fajr, the beginning of the sun's growth, and this 91, 7 through 10 is the one that we cite often because it's just there, it's critical. 7 through 10 by the soul, by the soul in the proportionate order given to it, and its enlightenment as to its the benefit and the harm. It's like enlightenment as to what's right for it and what's wrong for it. That's conscience. That's also conscience. So we have a natural conscience, but that conscience starts as a seed. There's a knowledge of, I tell you about the baby lab. So go look the 60 Minutes YouTube, the baby lab. And what you'll see in that is that from our earliest point of consciousness, right? Babies in the lap babies. From our earliest point of consciousness, there is in us an innate awareness of what's right and what's wrong. We can't even speak, but in our nature, we can be shown, which is what they do. They dramatize actions with puppets, and they can see how the child recognizes what's right and what's wrong, right? So that's a kind of fajr also, the dawn of conscience, the dawn of our sense of what's right and what's wrong. And so it's enlightenment, alham, for alhamaha fujuraha, fujur. So now you got fajrs back in there as well. Fujuraha wa taqwa. And taqwa is another statement about consciousness. So fujur is about this conscience at its early beginnings, right? This conscience at its early beginnings, which is a fajr, fajr. And then taqwa is a fullness, being conscious in the way that Allah would have you be conscious. And when you are conscious in the way that Allah would have you be conscious, then that means you'll have conscience in the right way about the right things. Quran says it may be that you love a thing that you should hate and hate a thing that you should love. It may be that you dislike a thing that's good for you and hate. It may be that you dislike a thing through which Allah brings about a great deal of good. So the point is that when you grow and when you mature, which is what this verse 91, 7 through 10 continues to talk about, verses 91, 7 through 10, where it says, blessed is he that causes it to grow. Blessed is he that causes it to grow. Well, what is it that's trying to grow? Well, you're trying to grow your conscience. You want it to grow in the way that Allah wants it to grow. So you're always in touch with what's right and what's wrong in the right way. And critical on this conscience is conscience, right? Meaning it's not just a feeling in your heart. It's about what rationally and spiritually makes sense. And so that's really kind of jumping to the end of what I'm saying, because Abraham represents that rational spirituality. It's a combination of both things. Abraham, who is the fullness of everything I'm talking about, whether I get finished with it or not, Abraham is the end. Abraham is the end. And Eid al-Adha is a celebration of the realization of that goal, of that destiny, right? Rational spirituality, right? And inshallah, maybe with Allah's help, I remember this hadith that I'll bring back before we go. But let's go back. 91:7. Blessed is he that causes it to grow. So the it that's growing is you have the fujur and the taqwa. Both of those are growing, and both of them, they grow together. So you have conscience, meaning enlightenment as to what's right, what's wrong, what's beneficial, what's harmful. That, and then that with taqwa being you're conscious of things in the way that Allah would have you be conscious. I have to, this picture of Moses and the wise man stays in my head and I continue to talk because Moses had this black and white rule-based consciousness at the time that he met. I'm talking about Surah 18, right? Surah 18. So sometimes you need to make notes and say, well, I need to go back and study that. I need to go back and study that. I need to go. That's what you got to do. But so I got to move on. So in any case, when Moses and the wise man got together, Moses had the rules. This is right. This is wrong. This is right. This is wrong. This is right. This is wrong. So then when he got with the wise man was doing everything that Moses would call wrong. But the wise man said, I'm acting according to the guidance of God. And God had sent Moses to, there's a little more you need to learn. So you need to go get with one of our servants that we have taught. And now follow him and you get a better understanding of what you think you already know, right? And so therefore the wise man, transcended the rules under the inspiration of God. He transcended those rules that Moses thought was the top. And this is what happens. Sometimes people think that the concrete, literal, technical knowledge, that's the end. You get to the height of that, then you got the best. No, there's something that transcends that. Going back to Abraham, the picture of Abraham in the 6th chapter, 75 through 80, that's the star, moon, sun, right? The picture of Abraham seeing the star, oh, that's God. No, the moon, that's God. No, the sun, oh, this has got to be God. No. Then he recognized that, no, there's something higher than everything that I see, and nothing that I see is God. But that is to say also in that picture that Abraham was able to see, by the grace of Allah, see beyond the material creation. But that also means his ability to see beyond the rules, beyond the rule. It doesn't mean that the rules are not valid. The rules are valid, but they're valid on a certain plane. When you get into another realm and you get onto another plane, it's like Allah is the one who knows, and etc. So I can't say for any individual, but Allah has left that for us because we're involved with something that's designed for the totality of humanity, past, present, and future. And so therefore, whatever it is that we think we know, it's not the end, and it's not the boundary. However, Allah gives us these stories, these models, examples, this revelation to give us a hint as to, look, there is life beyond whatever it is that you know of as rules. There's understanding that transcends the material world that you see and that you live in. And Abraham is the example of someone who transcended that. Al-Khizr, who Moses was following, is a symbol of someone who transcended that. And so the destiny is, inshallah, if you grow in the manner that Allah intends for you to grow, you can realize in your life a level of perception, a level of awareness, a level of consciousness, and a level of conscience that is, well, transcendent. Let's put it like that. It's just transcendent. And so in terms of that 91, 7 through 10, the idea of blessed is he that causes the fujur, taqwa, conscience and consciousness. And that's what's growing 7 through 10. Blessed is he that causes it grow, cursed is the one who neglects it. Right. Now, so now in terms of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, they are 70 days apart. 70 days apart. So you have Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan, right? In the beginning, I think Shawwal is the month that follows that. But the point is that it's connected with Ramadan. So then you have 70 days, and then you have Eid al-Adha. So there's a 7 and a 10 right there. 7 times 10, that's 70, right? So there's a connection between 7 and 10, 91, 7 through 10. So you can connect those. Then you also have in Surah 89, Al-Fajr, right? 89, Al-Fajr. And then that verse ends with Nafsul Mutma'inna. It ends with Nafsul Mutma'inna. So, so 91, 7, no, not 91, 7 through 10. 70 days. 70 days. So you have Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. This is why, as a student of Imam Muhammad, when we do the takbirat, which there are at least 11 different ways, I believe, for doing the takbirat for the Eid. The Shafi'is have their way, the Malikis have their way, and Abu Hanifa and the like. May Allah have mercy on all of them. Different takbirat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Different, right? Imam Muhammad rahimahullah alayhi, we do 5 and then 7. First 5 and then the second rak'ah 7, right? And what's the first 5? The first 5 is Adam. Adam is the 5 senses. And then you grow from 5, and in the second one you do 7. And that 7 is that completion in Abraham. Abraham is 7. He's the top. And what's the connection for that? It is the Isra wa Mi'raj. And the Isra wa Mi'raj, the Isra wa Mi'raj means the night journey of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And on each one of those different planes, he met a prophet, the prophet who was on this journey. He met major prophets on each level. First, there was Adam, so that's the beginning, right? Jesus and John the Baptist, Yusuf, Idris, Aaron, who was a prophet, along with Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, which is Musa the 6th, and then Abraham the 7th. So that 7 is Abraham. That 7 is Abraham. So you have 5 in Adam, the beginning, and 7 in Abraham, the end, right? Eid al-Fitr, the beginning. Eid al-Adha, the end. Eid al-Fitr, Adam. Eid al-Adha, Abraham. And the Quran says, whoever attains the station of Abraham has indeed attained security, right? So the realization of the level of Abraham is the realization of Nafsul Mutma'inna. Nafsul Mutma'inna, the soul that's at complete rest, the soul that has been fulfilled, the soul that is pleased and pleasing. That growth has been attained. When you look like Abraham, and whatever the reference might be, and I'm saying rational spirituality just for the sake of grasping it, because Abraham, he had the heart, the spirit, and the mind for that Allah intended, and He's the model. He's the model. Allahumma sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. All right, so that's that movement 7 to 10. Now, And when you have when you do the Eid time is a time. I'm going to put a little caveat on what I'm saying here, because since I'm speaking extemporaneously, could be a possible slight miss on this, but I don't. Allahu Alam. You do the Eid prayer. Let's say this: Eid al-Fitr. You do that a little later, so that people can pay the Eid Sadaqah. The Eid Sadaqah is mandatory, and its real purpose for your individual spirituality, its real purpose is to take care of any mistakes that you've made in your fast, during your fast, right? That is, so you make a mistake while you were fasting. Well, the Eid Sadaqah is a sort of like a payment to this. This is to correct all of the mistakes that I made during the Eid, during the Ramadan fast. So that's one. So you have that. You're a little bit delayed. The Eid al-Adha, you do that. You do that a little bit earlier so that the person can complete their sacrifice. Those who are going to make sacrifice before a certain time. Now, this time, duha, this is where I have to qualify my own saying. This duha is a time when the sunlight is like, the sun has risen and it's almost level with your eyes. It's almost level with your eyes. So you have this brightness of the sun, what duha, right? You have this brightness of the sun that's right there in your eyes on Eid al-Adha, right? So duha, adha, all of that, talking about the light and the brightness and of Abraham. So it's like being fully conscious, alert, awake, aware of your growing self, your growing conscience, and your growing consciousness. Now, the symbol of the Kaaba, as an example, the symbol of the Kaaba is a six-sided figure. And what they say in physics is that the most stable shape in creation is a cube. A cube. The cube is the most stable shape. And Kaaba means cube, among other things. Kaaba means cube, and it is the most stable. And it's a six-sided figure, right? And you can talk about 5 being the senses and 6 being perception. And so it being a six-sided figure, it's a reference to quote unquote perception, and our perception being the clearest and the most stable perception, the truest perception. What the cube represents also is integrity in all of your aspects, integrity in every aspect of your life. That's the cube. That's the Kaaba. The Kaaba is a symbol of this achieved maturity and this realized perfection. Remember, it was built by Abraham, and it was built by Adam. That's the beginning, and that's why there's a controversy of who built the Kaaba. Was it Adam or Abraham? Well, both of them, right? Because when Abraham left Ismail and Hajar out there, the dua in the Quran, it says that you have caused me, meaning that Allah ordered him to leave his family and the offspring by your sacred house. This was before Ismail was big enough to even be involved with building it. And so therefore, when Abraham says you caused me to leave it by your sacred house, it means that the sacred house was already there. It's not that the sacred house is already there when understood. It's that the foundation for it was there. Then when Ismail grew up well enough, then he and Abraham built the raised up the foundation that had been laid down. Who laid the foundation down? Adam laid the foundation down. And so that goes back to the Eid al-Fitr is Adam, and the Eid al-Adha is Abraham. And the Eid al-Adha is very largely associated with Hajj. And Hajj, you do Hajj at the Kaaba and the Zamzam and everything else that goes with that. But it started, of course, that particular location started with Adam, alayhi salatu wasalam, who laid the foundation. First thing that he did, after Allah says, "Get ye down from here on earth will be your dwelling place for a time." First thing that Adam did on earth was to build a house for the worship of Allah. And that is what we know to be the Kaaba, right? Then it quote unquote fell off, went away, etc. The foundations, however, were still there. Abraham, in conjunction with what Allah had ordered him in that quote unquote strange situation, take your wife, take your son, leave them out there. Allah already knew what was there. And then Allah is letting us know through the dua of Abraham that Abraham had some awareness of it, full awareness of it, actually. And so therefore, so the building it up is like us building ourselves up from the fitri foundation of our nature and growing our conscience and our consciousness up to this Abrahamic state where we are fully illuminated about our own nature and living that out in the world. And when we do that, that's nafsul mutma'inna. And there are all the shades and grades that we go through in order to get there, which is represented by those seven. Well, one part of it is represented by those seven stages. Okay, so yeah. So mashallah, Allahu alam. May Allah forgive us any shortcomings in our comments, and may Allah guide us to the best. So that's basically what we're going to offer today. I thank you all for your comments, your questions, your inputs. Take full take full advantage of these 10 days to get the full benefit of these days, because they won't be back, even if we may not be back next year to take advantage of it. So there's no time like the present. So thank you so much for your time and your attention. May Allah bless us, have mercy on us, forgive us our shortcomings. Oh, I wasn't looking at my other screen. Let me hit these before I go. Assalamu alaikum. Amen. Alhamdulillah. Rasul. Assalamu alaikum. Iman again. Makeda Sabri. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Wali. Assalamu alaikum. Got more of that St. Louis soul out there. Alhamdulillah, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Also, I do understand the concept of higher planes of understanding, but how does one transcend the rules without falling in the realm of bid'ah? I wish I had read that a little bit earlier. Let me see if I can. Okay, so I'll make a brief response to that, since I hadn't looked at it before. This question. Okay, so the issue of rules. See, there's. I got to put it this way, because this is the reality. The reality in the world, in the world of reality. I'm talking about the reality, the way that Allah has created. I got to use this language, mashallah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be brief, but correct. In the material world, you have what you call physics. You have what you call physics, right? And there's classical physics, which is called Newtonian physics. And those Newtonian physics is sometimes called pool ball physics. I hope you're taking notes, Iman. It's that. So there's pool ball physics. So that means one thing of force hits another thing of force, and for every action there's equal and opposite reaction, blah, blah, blah. So you have that. And so that's rule in the realm, those are rules in the realms of physics, which is called classical physics or Newtonian physics. All right, but now there's another reality. And that other reality is quantum mechanics, quantum physics, which is also a reality. But in that realm, things don't operate in the same way that classical or Newtonian physics operate. These are, I mean, many of us, we don't spend time in that neighborhood. The neighborhood I'm talking about right now, we don't spend time in that neighborhood, but I'm saying we should, because that's the way that you get to this higher realm, because that's actually what's in the picture of Abraham, star, moon, sun. The picture of Abraham, star, moon, sun is the evolution beyond what I'm talking about, right? So each one of those, star is a certain level of science, moon is a certain level of science, sun is a certain level of science, but then there's a level that transcends material science. And I'm talking about, they're talking about this now, themselves, right? But it was always true in al-Islam. But as man's conscience grows, revelation always is ahead of man, just period. So what Allah revealed to the Prophet 1445 years ago, what have you, lunar years ago, it's like the Big Bang and gestation in the womb of the woman and all those things that was revealed to the Prophet, who didn't have a telescope or a laboratory. And it's like, and all they're doing now is just confirming what Allah had already revealed. MashaAllah, we could talk about bosons in the Quran, quantum physics, all that. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. We thank Allah for it. There's no boast. So the point is that when you are, So when you're talking about rules, in the language that I'm using, just like we talked about sins earlier, in the language that I'm using, it's like, there's right and wrong the way that people see rules, but they are confined to a certain domain. Once you get past a certain level, those rules on that lower level doesn't apply. And that's what the story of Moses and the wise man is telling us. It's like, yeah, there's a level at which right and wrong, black and white, rule-based thinking is appropriate, but then when things get to a higher plane, those rules, and Allah knows best. Allah knows the one who's guided and the one who's astray, and that's Allah's business. When you get into that level, that's Allah's business. But just like I was saying about sin, it's like sin is sin. So it's like there's not a level at which, okay, well, fornication and adultery is all right at this level. No, fornication and adultery is wrong at any level with regard to that. So in terms of certain fixed things, those things are what they are. So now let me just throw in. So I've tried to say that in the reality, in the realm of existence, concrete reality, material life, then there are things that are fixed. You know, that they are fixed. I mean, it's like if I go onto top of a roof and I jump off, I am going to fall. I'm not going to float. I'm not going to fly. That's the law, right? However, I can get to a place where I can fly, but I just have to build a contraption that enables me to fly, right? So the rules of gravity, as it applies to me being able to fly or not fly, they are, negated, because now I'm dealing with aerodynamics. I'm dealing with, gravity in a different kind of way. So there's a whole different set of rules that apply when it comes to me being able to fly. But now I'm on a different plane, as opposed to I'm trying to just fly in my body. If I want to fly, okay, that's one thing, but you can't fly in your body. But if you want to fly and you take it to another level, then yeah, now you can fly, but you've changed and you're operating on a different set of rules, right? So the point is, or law. So the point is that I think the bigger, maybe even the most significant, is the issue of bid'ah. Let's just understand this. Bid'ah in that forbidden sense. Be real clear on this. Bid'ah, what they call bid'ah qat'i, is changing any of those things that Allah has given as the perfection of the religion. All right, so okay, Quranic verse. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دين. Allah said, "This day have I perfected for you your way of life, and have completed my favor upon you, and have preferred for you al-Islam as your way of life." Right? Surah 30, Ayah 30, and that last one was from Surah Al-Ma'idah, depending on which of the translation you might be reading. It could be in verse 3 or verse 4 or 5. Any case, so, but now, Surah 30, right? Surah 30, فَأَكِمْ وَجَهَكَ لِدِينَ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ قَيِّمًا وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created nature in a certain way, has perfected the religion in a certain way, and He's made the religion for the nature, right? Don't change the religion, don't change your nature, meaning don't change the form that Allah has intended. That is your religion. All right, bid'ah is to change the religion. That's what it literally means. Say there's no God but Allah. So mashallah, auzubillah, those who firmly believe that Allah as God, the God, came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and that when you look at that picture of Master Farad Muhammad, you're looking. I'm not mad at none of my brothers. I used to do that, have that, all the rest of that. It is what it is. So it's like, no, that's not God, right? So if you look at that and say, I'm looking at God, bid'ah, right? Bid'ah, not just bid'ah, it's shirk. But we used to say Ramadan was always in December. We say Ramadan is December, right? Bid'ah, because no, Ramadan is on the lunar calendar and it cycles through the solar calendar year. That's bid'ah, that's innovation. So you're changing the perfection of the religion. We used to say like Hajj is like to go to Chicago, right? Hajj, even though Elijah Muhammad went and made Hajj. There's another story behind that too. So bid'ah has to do with changing the religion that Allah has established firmly and purely with the Prophet. So if you change any of the beliefs, right? We believe in Allah. We believe in the books. We believe in the angels. We believe in the prophet. We believe in the qadr, prophets. We believe in the qadr, and we believe in life after death. All those things are fixed. You don't add to it. You don't take away from it. And you see them in the way that Islam says that they should be seen, right? Whatever Allah has said about them, that's what's true about them. Don't change them. You don't add to the number. You don't take away from the number. Same way with the 5 pillars of al-Islam. Allah's Prophet brought the pillars, showed us how to practice them. Don't change that. Now, there are other things that are not of the same fixed nature. They're not of the same fixed nature. Just like I just talked about the takbirat for the Eid prayers, right? Different schools of thought, quote unquote, have different numbers that they give in different orders for that. That's not bid'ah. That's not bid'ah. Those are just the room. There's room in al-Islam when you understand it. I mean, when I say when you understand it, doesn't mean that, well, I got a different understanding. You just don't understand my understanding. No, that part that doesn't work that way. The point is that you do have to study what is there's what you call the usul, because that's the kind of question that you're asking. So I got to bring up this language. Usul is talking about the roots, the usul. USUL transliteration, right? Usul. And then there's the fari, right? Furu'. The furu', fari, different language that's used. Those are the branches, right? Those are the branches. So you have the usul and you have the fari, the furu'. And so there, I think the usul is fundamental. That is the tree. That's the root. That is a tree. Branches can be different. So there are certain things, and then there's also let's limit ourselves to that. So the point is that bid'ah means to change what's fundamental. What I'll point to a couple of things just as examples, right? There are those who who would tell you that anything that the Prophet didn't say or do, or etc. To do anything other than that, that's bid'ah, wrong. The Prophet never rode in a boat. The Prophet obviously never flew in a plane or never rode in a car, all that. So what are you going to say? Is that bid'ah? No. Not necessarily. Bid'ah is not necessarily anything that the Prophet didn't ever do. Bid'ah is the other way, is to change what Allah's Prophet confirmed and what Allah established in the Quran as fixed. When you try to change that, that's a problem. Now, two things. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, Allah never said, and the Prophet never said, make a complete compilation of the Quran. It was never ordered by the Prophet. And before he passed, said, okay, look, we need to collect everything that's been revealed to me so far, and we need to put it into one book. Omar radiallahu anh had to convince Abu Bakr to put the revelations into one book, because it was never ordered by the Prophet. It was never ordered by the Quran itself. But by reasoning, Abu Bakr was convinced, and of course Umar was convinced, that we need to put it all into one book. And you just study the history of the Quran and how it got into the condition that it's in right now. There's a lot more teaching in that, but I'm not trying to extend into that. Going back to Omar as another example, we make the Tarawih when we do the Tarawih. So putting the Quran into a book could have been taken as a bid'ah, and yes, it was a bid'ah. It was an innovation in as much as it hadn't been done before. Since it hadn't been done before, okay, now you're doing something that hadn't been done before. That's an innovation, but that's not the bid'ah that people are saying to quote unquote stay away from. It's a bid'ah, but it's not the bid'ah. I believe it's called qat'i. It's not that kind of bid'ah, because there's nothing stated against it, right? Or there's nothing that it violates by doing so, right? So also when we make Tarawih, when we do the Tarawih prayer, in actuality, the Tarawih prayer is actually an individual prayer in the real, original, formal sense of it. It is you do it on your own in the masjid, at the house, or what have you. So in the time of Omar, however, it became the case where there were so many people doing Tarawih individually. And then Omar saw that as a problem. That was a problem. And so he mandated that the Tarawih be done in congregation, which is the way we do it now. That was an innovation. That was a bid'ah. But he wasn't violating the religion in doing that. He was doing what the religion actually tells him to, fastabiqul khairat. Would it not be better if we all did it together as opposed to everybody doing it? So imagine how many different voices in the masjid making their different prayers. And you should know that it sounds much more like noise than something graceful. And so, in any case, so Omar had established that. So that was a bid'ah, but not bid'ah in the haram sense. So the point is that we just have to know what the fundamentals are, know what the usul are, know what the limits and the freedoms are. We have freedom in certain regards, in certain areas. You need to know what those are, what those boundaries are. So I'm gonna have to leave it right there. If you have any other questions with regard to that, or any if anybody got some solid corrections on what I would say, hit me with an email. Right, I'm gonna go ahead and put my email here, and that'll be that. All right. Alhamdulillah, may Allah have mercy on us, guys, forgive us our shortcomings, and accept our supplication and worship. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think I'm gone.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.